Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. Welcome to our monthly critique.
Ready? Hello.
Hey.
We're finally getting to the monthly critiques that we owe y'all. So here's the first one of 3. So we watched the documentary Missing 411, The Hunters. I want to say that's what the full title
I thought it
is.
was called The Hunted.
The Hunted. We're gonna go with that.
Okay.
I'm going on memory. Missing 411 was the easiest part for me to remember.
Right.
So, Nydia, you have notes. So I'm gonna let you take over from here.
Okay, so I really enjoyed this documentary. It was thorough and in depth, and it was something that Dana had discussed before. Something that she wanted to cover. It was something that I had in my notes to cover for a story. So basically, I'll get into it. Steve, I think his name was Pilatus.
David Pilatus.
Yeah, I think so.
Steve Pilatus, he's a detective.
David, wasn't it David?
I think it's Steve.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Somebody look it up.
I'm looking it up right now. Go ahead, just keep going. I'll let you know.
So he's a writer. He was a retired detective, now a writer and a host of this Missing 411 series. It's a series of documentaries, I believe. So in this The Hunted, he's discussing the vanishing of experienced hunters in a pattern and in the same areas. So these are like small areas throughout the country where a concentration of experienced outdoorsmen and women have turned up missing. And the FBI, he goes on and he says, and something that I was like, wait a minute, what? I had like a little bit of a Mandela effect. Dana, you were going to say something?
It is David.
It's David. Why did I call Steve?
You got the last name right, though.
Okay. So he said the FBI doesn't investigate missing adults.
Yeah, I think that was so strange because I was literally listening right before I watched this documentary. I was listening to My Favorite Murder, and they were covering almost something like this case, and they were saying that because, of course, their information isn't always necessarily accurate, but they were she was covering a case where a woman was murdered in she went missing in like a state park, and because it was a national park that the FBI was involved, they couldn't use the local like authorities because it was like a, I don't know, conflict of interest or something. So like, I thought that was odd that the show said that, but I was like, of course, My Favorite Murder gets a lot wrong anyway. So I'm like, who knows? But I
want to find out though.
Yeah. I thought that was strange because since when don't they like?
I know they have a whole missing persons thing, but I thought it had to do with, I thought it was everyone, but he made it sound like it was just children.
Young children.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, wait a minute, that can't be right. Anyway, this whole thing is another reason to hate camping. Just another fucking.
I was like, you guys picked this on purpose to be annoying. I literally thought that. I was like, you guys totally picked this on purpose.
I thought you picked this.
I didn't pick this. No, Cindy told us to do it, and we just showed up.
I ordered y'all to do it because I had to get y'all on board.
Okay, well, listen, I don't hate it. So it starts off with Tom Messick, and he was an elderly man who used to be a military man, and he was an outdoorsman. He used to give the hunting training for people to get their hunting license, and he was now in his 80s, and he's basically blind and deaf.
Yeah, he had like shot himself in the eye or something. Like something happened to his eye and he like lost an eye.
Gunpowder exploded in his face
Right.
and yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, and he was also in his 80s and blind and deaf, right? So
Right.
and all the hunters basically that went up to the camp with him were all in their 80s.
Which like, sir.
Yeah, I mean it was a large group and there were younger people amongst them, but the
Yeah, they're kids.
watchers, the people on the trail watching and leading the deer, guiding the deer towards the hunters down the road, were all in their 80s.
Yeah.
All right, so go ahead, Dana.
Your mic is off.
My mic is off?
Yeah,
It's out
Go
of
ahead.
place,
Now
so
we
we
can hear
can't
you.
hear you.
Can you hear me now?
yeah.
I can hear you now.
I think that's, I think if they're gonna have a job, it should be guiding the deer towards the people shooting and not being the people shooting, you know? Especially when they're blind and not, like, I don't think it was blind, but like hard of sight, hard of hearing. Like,
Yeah.
I think, sir, maybe you sit this one out, you know?
Exactly. So I have a theory about him, but before I share my theory, he goes missing. Tom goes missing, and the search was insanely thorough.
Right.
I mean, they did like a, and it was so weird because they did like the string pattern through the forest, and they had hundreds of volunteers going out there, and they everywhere they searched, like they did like a search grid, and they tied their string between trees, and they made sure that they doubled back and double checked and triple checked some areas, and he was never found. But not only was he never found, none of his equipment was found, nothing, zero evidence of him. And the dogs that they brought out there picked up the scent up until the spot that he was standing, and then they picked up no more scent.
And I don't know that like you've even really like reiterated the point that these are like people who hunt
Their whole lives.
experienced woodsmen, experienced campers, experienced hikers, you know, trainers of like the younger generation. Like these are people who know these woods, who know their way around guns, who know their like this is the land they grew up on. Like this is not like they probably go into the woods without an inkling of nerves or hesitation or any type of reservation about their safety, you know? And for him to just vanish is
He was like poof.
yeah.
Gone.
With a ton of other people around.
Right.
Yeah, because they went up 7 in a group. The 3 old guys had each one had picked a location to sit at and wait while the other 4 sent the deer their way, supposedly.
Right.
That was the goal.
Yeah.
And poof, he was gone.
Right. So one of the men that were in the hunting group, who was very close to Tom Messick, they even vacationed together and brought their kids, you know, along in their campers, and you know they were close their whole lives. He said that he heard a strange sound coming from the woods, and something that sounded out of place for the normal woodland sounds that you would hear. And he said that it sounded like a big trap closing. And I thought that was interesting, like a big trap door closing or something.
Yeah. And as the documentary goes on, and we'll talk about it, like the way they describe this sound, like they all have this like weird description of what sound sounds like, you know.
If it's the same sound.
If it's right, of course. I mean, the way the documentary is set up, it would lead you to believe that like something is happening across the country, you know.
Right. So
but yeah, like, and I thought, and again, we'll get into all of that later, but like I did think it was very interesting when they like lined everything up. It was like, you know, they get separated, there's a weird weather abnormality, there's something wrong with them medically, there's a weird sound, and it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
and I'm gonna expand on that in a minute.
Yeah.
But they searched for Tom for 10 days, and then they stopped the search because of something else big that happened. But what's your theory on Tom's disappearance? What do you think happened?
I mean, the one thing about this documentary is I don't really feel like I have any answers to any of their disappearances. I don't know. I don't know.
What about
So,
you, Cindy?
for a quick while, I was thinking this is a hunting accident gone wrong and they're just hiding the body. But also, there's no evidence of any foul play. Like, there's no blood, there's no track. Like, had there been some kind of, you know,
You can't have that many people involved in a crime and that shit not, even if it was an accident, even if it was an accident, like, I will misquote Ben Franklin again.
that's what I was thinking of.
You know, like, there's just no way. Like, and then for the dogs not to, I know
Wait,
that's not like an exact
what
science.
was Ben Franklin's
I
thing?
don't know. Like, the
It's-
fucking, if two or more people have a secret,
Oh.
only something, if only
Yeah.
two of them are dead or something. I'll never know. I'll never
if
know the
two people have a secret,
truth.
the secret basically stays a secret if one of them is dead.
Mhm.
That's also not it, but right. It's just
Move your mic closer to the center because you keep covering it.
bitch,
I just get muffled shit.
bitch. You know?
We want to hear you call me a bitch clearly, and it's not
Yeah.
happening. It's still not happening.
What? What the fuck?
Yeah, your speaker's not working.
Can you hear me now?
No.
What the fuck? Well,
I mean, we hear you, but it's all like a
can you hear me now?
little better.
All right.
I don't think your mic is being, I think your computer's picking up.
Okay. All right. Well, I unplugged it.
Yeah, now I hear you great.
Okay, great.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's better. Thank you. If you gotta say, I want the full
So
volume of it.
the thing that happened that called off the search, also, and I want to say that Tom Messick, when he was missing, even though the reason why I brought up the FBI is that even though the FBI doesn't investigate missing adults in this park system, I don't know, but he said that even though they don't, they were investigating his disappearance.
Right.
Which was, well, why are they investigating this? Why are they taking copious notes on, on how this man went missing or whatever, So
Right.
the reason why they called off the search is because another man, so this was 10 days after Tom Messick goes missing, another man by the name of Fred Drum goes missing 40 miles south of where Tom went missing.
Right.
And he goes missing from his house on Thanksgiving Day. So he's surrounded by woods, his whole house. He's in a very rural area, and his whole house is surrounded by, I guess, essentially, in essence, the same woods that Tom Messick went missing in. You know what I mean? Part of that same forest or whatever.
Yeah.
Miles south. So his wife comes home and he's gone. No sign of him. No, nothing. He's just disappeared. And he was also an elderly outdoorsman. Never to be found. He was never found again.
Right. Neither was Tom.
Nothing.
No, neither one.
And nothing, none of their equipment, nothing tracked for them.
Right.
Which is a little different from the ones that we will come up to next.
Right. So, in his investigation and observation of these missing people, of these pockets of missing people, there's a pattern. So there's a point of separation from which the person separates from their group. The disappearance happens near bodies of water. So if they're near a creek, they're near a river, a lake, whatever, there's often rock fields in the area, granite fields, you name it, rock fields, boulders, around the same time of day. So between afternoon and dusk, that's when these people disappear.
That's interesting.
Say again?
So that's interesting. Like the fact that it's always like a similar time of day is very interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, see, because like I'm assuming that if you're on a hike, that's usually when you're taking that's the active part of the hike. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like prior to that, you'd be at the encampment or you would be arriving to the place. And by dusk, you've settled into your camp and you're not continuing to hike. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
You're gonna be taking it down for the night.
Exactly.
Very soon. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you're
Yeah.
not no longer moving. There's a weather incident at or around the time of the disappearance. Be it a storm, fog, whatever, some type of illness or disability regarding the missing person. So whether it's a physical disability or a mental disability, the missing person is usually disabled in some kind of way. And dogs, the scent dogs lose the scent for some odd reason. They just can't pick up the scent. And if they're found in an area that was previously searched, often naked. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. And the coroner can rarely determine the cause of death. And they happen in geographical clusters.
Yeah, so like I don't know a lot about canine search and rescue, like dogs like sniffing whatever. I don't know a lot about it, and I wonder at this point like um how accurate, or like is it like a bunk science also? Like I know dogs are like very fucking smart and like good at shit, but like is that a thing that we really like rely on anymore, you know?
Well,
do.
go ahead, Cindy.
I mean, they do. They definitely rely on it, and it has been proven to work. But it depends on the time frame in which the dogs go out there. So if they're waiting a long time, if there's been a weather event, that can wash away some of that scent that may be left behind,
Right.
and thus create a problem. So a lot of times the dogs may not be brought out as quickly as they really need to be brought out to really connect with the possible scent that may be left in that area.
Right.
Right. So I have explanation for all of these things, right? So the person becomes separated from the group. That's a given, right?
Yeah.
They become separated, and the disappearance is happening near water. Sometimes when you become separated, if you get too hot, you want a drink of water. You're usually not prepared because you've separated yourself from the camp, and you probably don't have water. So you're probably going to a water source to see the flow of the river, to follow it or whatever, to follow the body of water to see if you can get out to, out of the forest unlost, right? So maybe they slip trying to cross a river or something and they fall into the waters, the rock fields, people missing around rock fields. Well, how many times have you misstepped a mossy rock and fallen and hit yourself,
How many times have you misstepped on a mossy rock, Nydia?
I've done it.
Have you ever even seen a mossy rock?
Yeah, in Puerto Rico all the time.
Okay, all right.
And I end up slipping and falling on my ass.
My argument, my point counterpoint would be, why is there no evidence then?
Like at
Why
the
is there
very
no
least,
evidence then?
at the very least, their equipment would be found. Something.
Their scent, their blood, like DNA, like the way that they searched for that first guy, and a lot of them, Tom Messick, but Tom Messick specifically, the way they searched for him was so fucking thorough, and for days and days and days. It would be very odd that if he slipped into the water or fell into a rock quarry, that there would be no sign of him. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That being said, I watched a TikTok today of an examiner, one of those examiners, and she said the best way to hide a body is to put it in a moving body of water
Why?
because it drags it away from whatever the original spot was.
Yeah, but it
And
usually surfaces somewhere though.
its surface is somewhere, but it could have been dumped at any location. So it minimizes, I guess, the where that person could have been dropped
Sure.
from. And
Sure, I get that, but I still think that like something then, even if he surfaced up,
Oh.
miles away, 50 miles away, whatever, like he would still at
You
some
would-
point surface up.
you would think he would surface up.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean
Unless-
his hat, his bright red hat, he
Yeah.
was wearing a bright red hat.
Flannel.
Yeah, flannel patterned hat. He had a weapon, he had a gun on him. He was carrying weapons.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And nothing turned up, not a candy wrapper, nothing.
Right.
So so then we talk about the geographical clusters, one in particular, which the Santa Fe National Forest, which has a cluster of about 59 missing people. Dana, are you there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I thought you froze for a second.
No.
And they focus on 3 specific people. The first one being 75-year-old Audrey Kaplan. She had gone into the forest searching for mushrooms with her husband and become separated. And thunderstorms happened that night. So the dogs were unable to pick up the scent.
Right.
So as they searched the area and everything, searchers found, and this was days later, searchers found a campsite, and that had been, and it had been there for a couple days, and she was found in the fetal position, completely naked, and lying on her side in a creek bed. The coroner said that it may have been hypothermia, but her body showed no signs of hypothermia. And even though she was found in the creek, he said that she didn't drown.
Right.
So they declared that she had hypothermia because, she was naked and, but he said that she had no signs. Her body showed no physical signs of hypothermia.
Right.
Mhm.
And what time of the year was that? Was
in summer.
right? I mean, I guess it still kind of gets cold at night in some places, but it just
Yeah,
seems
but-
so fucking odd.
They said that at one day it got in the teens.
Which is cold.
Yeah, but for the most part, it wasn't very cold. It
was July in
it was
Santa
July.
Fe.
There you go.
Oh yeah, it's fucking hot as balls.
Okay, then hypothermia. I don't know. I mean, at night in a I think it was like a dry forest or something.
Fucking Santa Fe is like a goddamn desert, isn't it?
Well, they went mushroom hunting.
Yeah. So it must have been like a foresty
It
area.
snows out there, so I know it gets cold.
Not in July, though, I wouldn't think.
No, I would think not.
And also, how innocent is it to go mushroom hunting with your boyfriend? I don't know what to do about it.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah, I
how
don't know.
I said, how innocent is it to just like go mushroom hunting with your boyfriend? Like, you know what I mean? Like, or your husband or whoever he was to her.
Mhm.
Like,
Her husband, she was 75.
oh my God. But like, how innocent? Like, you're just like, what a like little fairy life. You know what I mean? To just like, I'm gonna go mushroom hunting and go pick like foraging in the forest, and then to like die in such a tragic way.
What's your theory on her?
I don't think she died of hypothermia.
Cindy?
That one's a strange one. I'm gonna chuck it up to weirdness. I mean, just overall, it could be fear in the forest, getting lost.
Okay, hear me out.
But it's so strange.
They were mushroom hunting, right?
Maybe
Mhm.
she
She
got
was
a bad
camping.
mushroom.
She was camping clearly because they found a little campsite, and she ate a bad mushroom that tripped her the fuck out.
Yeah, but wouldn't they be able to detect that in the autopsy?
Hmm.
I don't
And I
know.
don't think it
And
was
they
those
did
kind of
not.
mushrooms, babe.
What'd you say?
I don't think it was those kind of mushrooms.
No, I know, but you know how like sometimes you pick mushrooms and maybe they're not the correct ones if you're not an experienced mushroom picker.
Kind of like our friend that
Nan.
almost killed herself.
And Nan is a nurse practitioner, for God's sakes.
She should
Yeah.
have known better.
I don't fucking eat. I really don't eat like almost anything from the forest, and I like to be in the forest. And I'm like, I'm not eating that. But I
She
would think most people who are foraging for mushrooms either don't eat them or are pretty like that's not a thing you just like do without some pretty decent knowledge about what you're doing,
Mhm.
And almost
Yeah.
all of them, it would stand to reason like 99% of them you can at least touch, I don't
Yeah.
think there's any that you just can't like touch even. So like, and I think that if she was poisoned herself or ate something weird or had a heart attack or, injured herself in a way, like it would have showed in an autopsy. Like there's no way, no reason that like we shouldn't have been able to find a reason that why this person died.
I mean, for real, that at the very least should have been detectable.
Right.
You would assume.
Right.
You would assume.
Well, there was another guy,
Mhm.
61-year-old Mel Nadell. He
Mhm.
was a hunter out with coworkers and friends, and he disappeared in the Elk Mountains, same area, I guess.
Mhm.
Mel had just had a knee injury the day before. He stepped in a gopher hole and he injured his knee. So he couldn't, he becomes separated with his friends because he couldn't hike up with them. So he stayed slightly behind to hunt the lower area while his friends went higher up the mountain. So when his friends returned back from the hunt, they realized that the Jeep and everything else that Mel had was there, but he has gone missing. And once again, they bring in tracking dogs, and the dogs can't find him past the point where he was last seen. And none of his weapons or belongings were ever found, even though he was carrying a crossbow and a gun. So then there was that.
And a crossbow is fucking huge
Yeah, and heavy.
and heavy, and a
Right.
gun is big and heavy, and like
Right.
for them to not find any of this is what I'm saying. Like, what the fuck is going on?
Right. Right.
Somebody's collecting some equipment.
Well, and they're so far apart from each other that like makes it odd. Like it makes it odd. Like you almost can't you can't even be like, oh, maybe it's a serial killer and they're taking their equipment and blah blah blah. Like
Right.
that's doesn't make sense,
Right. Right. And now help me out with this one, Cindy. I'm confused whether because then another man, Stanley Vigil, disappears in Barbillas Peak. So was he the one that later was found, his body was found, or was that still Mel?
No, that was so hold on, let me put Vigil 2017, 10 miles from Nadell, chased a deer. Then some weird fog and weather appeared out of nowhere, and then
Okay,
he
yeah.
disappeared. Later, his body, skull, and his body would be found. Skull and ribs would be broken, and according to this, they say presumably drowned.
Right. So yeah, so I was thinking, so back to Mel. Some of the theories with his disappearance is that since they're in Santa Fe, New Mexico, the whole Roswell territory comes into play.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
people like to think that he was abducted because of, they're in Roswell territory. And so Stanley Vigil disappears, like Cindy says. He shoots a deer, and a fog rolls in the area, and he goes missing. Dogs are brought in, and they can't pick up the scent naturally because it has rained, and maybe that scatters their scent or something. Helicopters can't see him anywhere. Trackers can't find him. 5 months later, a cop and his son are fishing, and they find his body. And like Cindy said, he had broken ribs and skull injuries. And he presumed to have drowned 9 miles away from where he went missing. The problem is that he owned a GPS device and he didn't take it with him. He left it in the car.
I think that was Nadell. That was
Okay, so
Melvin
that
too.
was Nadell. Yeah. All right. So I had those two confused. Nadell had the GPS device and he left it in the car instead of taking it with him. But he just disappeared poof out of nowhere.
But he was literally just going like if the field that they showed was the field that he was on, literally on, that looked like an open field, and maybe he walked a few feet into where the woods are, which didn't feel like he would need a GPS to walk a few feet out of the woods back to because it looked like a very open space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess
he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't even traveling that far. Like he wouldn't have needed it, really, right?
Right. But let's say that he saw a freaking 10-point buck and he shot at it and then he injured it and he goes to chase it.
But that was Vigil that was chasing the deer.
Yeah, but I'm saying that could have happened with Mel too. You know what I mean?
I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So then we go to another area where there's like a big, a big missing people, group of missing people. Aaron Hedges goes missing in the Crazies.
Hodge. I thought Hodge. But even before then, they start talking about the packing list that you should have.
Oh yeah. So what's the packing
So
list?
they talked about having your ID, your hunting ID, your GPS, your knife, water, a snack, a trash bag, even so that you can use it as a trash bag or use it as, water stuff. Are you
That's it, when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's such a good idea. Yeah.
Tell people where you're going. Check the weather, of course. A fire starter and something bright. So they mentioned like these things that you twist and turn and whatever, and it creates like a halo of brightness around you so that they can find you. So these are just some things that they say they recommend as your packing list.
A satellite phone too.
Ain't nobody got money for satellite phones. But the GPS tracker alone should be helpful.
Also a whistle. I found that very helpful. That whistle would have come in real handy.
So now we get into the crazies in Montana. Yes.
Right. So Aaron Hodges, is it Hodges? Sometimes my
I got Hodges, but Dana, What were you gonna try to say?
I was gonna say that like some of these people that I guess we haven't really even talked about was like that they had we were talking about satellite phones, but they had like walkie-talkies where they were all on the same channel.
Yeah.
And they weren't like,
oh yeah, we didn't mention that.
Fine with them. Like that doesn't like make like add up for me,
Yeah, that all of a sudden their walkie-talkies are gone too.
Yeah. But anyway,
they don't even use them.
Right. What?
We have 4 minutes left.
Oh shoot.
What's your theory on Mel and Stanley?
In the Santa Fe cluster?
Yeah. What's your theory on Mel?
Is that the one who broke his ribs and his skull?
No, that's the one that went poof, gone.
Oh. See, the ones that totally disappear, I have less thoughts on. Like the guy who breaks his, they find his body or whatever. You're like, okay, I could see how this person slipped and fell in a rock quarry or something like this. And, that makes sense. Maybe his like injuries like lead up to that or, add up to that. But when their full ass bodies and all their equipment disappears, like, I don't know. Like, I don't have theories on that. Like, what do you think?
I think somebody, and I think the same thing for Tom. I think somebody another hunter, like their equipment, pulled up aside them and get in the fucking car, and then stole their shit and killed them somewhere else. Why else would the dogs stop right where they stood?
Problem is that they would have to walk into where, like, it's not like the car's right there. They would literally have to go in, get them, have them walk back out. Because even in that point, if you look at the way the layout was for Tom was at the top, so he would have had to walk past the other two hunters that he was on the side of to get back to the trail.
Yeah, you're right. Damn it.
And that was the thing too, like when the people who like did the investigations, they fucking have these maps and they're like, the wind came in from this way and this thing came, and like it's not like somebody hasn't deeply thought about what the fuck went on here. Like
Yeah.
these people have thought about this shit till it's consumed their lives. So like the fuck.
Like
Right.
in that Santa Fe area, I think the cluster in that like little tiny area was 15 in that little area. I think as a whole it was more, but just in that tiny area where those three disappeared, he only spoke of 3 that were just in that tiny spot of the 15.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah, but it was like 59 plus or something in that whole forest or whatever.
Mhm.
When we come back, we'll talk about Aaron Hodges.
Okay.
We're back.
All right.
All
So
right, Aaron, let's get on to
Aaron freaking goes missing in the crazies. And he was kind of young. He looked like he was like in his 30s.
Yeah.
Now this one's in Montana.
Okay. The Crazy Mountains are the youngest mountain range, right?
Yep.
It is believed to be cursed by the Crow Indians, and the curse is said for the wind to blow and drive the white man crazy. And honestly, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Aaron goes, just makes sense. They cursed it because they were driven away from the area.
Right.
So, Aaron goes in with his friends on 2 horses and a mule. The mule starts bucking and runs off with Aaron's camping equipment that was on the mule, right?
Mm-hmm. They have what they call a horse wreck. And there was 3 horses and the mule and so they end up collecting the mule, getting everything back together, and they end up getting to their location.
Right, but Aaron still didn't have his camping equipment. But Aaron was familiar with the area, and what he was familiar with doing, he used to go there a lot. So he would hide caches throughout the forest because he was prepared for any type of situation. If he was going to be separated, he knew that he had little extra stuff stored,
Right.
So because all his camping equipment was gone, he told his friends that he would go and get what he needed from one of these stored caches. So he left to go get his cache and come back to his friend's campsite. And he was the one that had a walkie-talkie on him and a GPS. And his friends call him on his walkie-talkie and see his GPS is way off track. Because what happened was there was like a fork in, where he came to 2 lanes, right? The road cuts off. And so he was supposed to make a left, and instead he made a right. And so his friends were like, okay, he's experienced, he knows this fucking area, through and through. And so they were like, all right, the next day he's missing. They didn't report it. But here's the thing, I don't understand why he wasn't responding to them, on the walkie-talkie.
Because he was abducted by aliens.
So the next day there's well, not the next day, but the next day after that, there's a snowstorm. I'm not gonna pay
Yeah, a
attention. to
fucking
your aliens.
gigantic snowstorm, like the
Yeah.
biggest. Like when they were talking about the snowstorm, I was like, "Are these people out of their fucking minds?" Like,
Uh-huh.
to be what? What? Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Like, what they say? Like 24 inches of snow in 12 hours or something like that.
Is that what they said, Cindy? I don't remember that.
I don't remember any of that, but
They said 18 to 24 inches of snow in 12 hours, which I fucking hate the snow. Like that shit was like scary as like I was just thinking like the amount of snow that would have to fall in that amount of time, like how big,
Yeah.
like it would be. Why would you ever be outside if that was even coming within the next week? You know?
Right. And they were supposed to be there for a whole week.
Oh fuck no! I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on? Because
Mhm.
like at that point, like if you're lost, even if even an experienced hiker, hunter, camper, whatever, if you're lost and you don't have like, I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I guess you can. I mean, I shouldn't say. I guess you can camp in the snow if you have the proper equipment.
Right.
A, why the fuck would you ever want to? And that's like my white ass saying like, what the fuck? And B, that amount of snow, like if you don't have the exact right amount of food, water, like you're dead. You'll die. Like
Right.
you will fucking die. And like that's not even like a little bit like of something that somebody who's experienced would take a chance of doing, you know?
Right. Cindy,
Anyway.
what time of year was it?
I do not have that. I have the year. Okay. No, I have the year. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So it didn't look like, I mean, he was wearing a light jacket, you know what I mean? He wasn't wearing like heavy winter clothes. So I think this was like one of those things that happen in the mountains, you know what I mean, when you're in the mountains, that it's just like a freak snowstorm.
I fucking
Anyway,
get Montana. It's like,
yeah.
I've been to Montana and so I went into the mountains in Montana and at the top it was all full snow. Full
sure.
snow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We drove back down and I was in a sleeveless shirt.
Right. So
Right.
I guess
And
the
this
higher
was
up
like
you go-
mid to end of April. It was the end of April.
I mean, like, yeah, mountaintops are covered in snow. Like, obviously, we get like, I mean, I get that. But like that wasn't my impression of where they were.
It didn't look like that. Also, though, if it was drivable or anything like that, then why would they have horses with them and a mule to carry all their equipment? So
True.
it definitely was in an wherever they were going was definitely isolated. And then if you remember some of the pictures and views of that trail that they were on was very steep and very treacherous in some of
he
those
went
areas.
missing. This was in September.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so this was early September. The trip started September 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that area will have snow at that time of year, and it could
Even
come
yeah, and you do
unexpectedly.
have a point. If they were at a point where they couldn't have their car, that they were like on fucking horseback and shit. Yeah, they were probably like up in some, maybe. Okay, fine, but still, I think that's
It was
mentally
insane.
ill. Yeah, I think it's mentally ill. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was
So
insane.
okay. So so the snowstorm. The authorities aren't called until a couple days later. So his friends don't call the authorities. Scent dogs find his boots and some other items near a rock bench. So a rock formation, and his boots are like side by side, like they were purposely sat there like that. They weren't strewn across, like if he was attacked.
Right, right. They were just like placed there, like you took them off on purpose.
Right. They find a water bladder
Mhm.
and his boots, and I forget what else they found.
A fire pit.
Yes. Okay. So but no sign of him. And now it's like it has snowed. There's 24 inches of snow on the ground, and he doesn't have his boots on. Oh, they found, this is what they found. They found the strap of his like thingy. Whatchamacallit?
Some-
The pack.
This thing around his belt, yeah, like around
Yes,
his
the thing
waist,
around
yeah.
his belt. Yes. And they said that maybe he was using that as protection for his feet, but really that's not much protection because
they said the hands.
For his hands.
oh, for his hands. Okay. So but that's not much protection because even if he was barefoot without those boots, the area, the rocks were very craggy, and so he would have torn his feet apart, you know. So the thoughts are that the searchers had also already checked that area, and those boots weren't there.
Mm-hmm.
They saw
That's-
none of that.
That's the part of this whole thing is like where they're finding things where people have checked and checked and checked again, and then they'll go back a fourth or fifth time, whatever, and then find the body or find their equipment or find what, like, what are you doing? What's happening?
Right.
I need more answers. This is
Right.
a very frustrating documentary because I definitely left more confused than I started, certainly, obviously.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they think that he got naked or, you know, took off his boots because he had hypothermia.
Right.
But the crazy thing is that 9 months later, they find his backpack leaning against a tree. It had a gun inside. Near that, they found a thermos and a cup and an open energy drink. And so he had food inside his backpack. He had everything that he would have needed to you know, get himself to survival. And where they found all this stuff was you could see a house,
Right.
like just in the distance. So he
You
could
could
have
see
walked it.
safety.
Right.
Absolutely. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was
So
snacks, and they definitely confirmed it was his because his IDs were in there.
Right.
exactly.
Which leads me to believe that he did not put it there.
You think?
I mean, even a person who is hypothermic and not maybe thinking well, I think if they saw safety, they would head towards it. You know what I
Also-
mean?
Also,
Yeah.
this was in June. By
Oh
this
yeah,
time-
this was months and months after.
Mhm.
Right.
So
But how
this
close was
June,
that to his body?
It was pretty
and
It was far. Okay.
we're talking as a total from when they started from the original camp to where they find his body. It was a total of 11 miles.
Right, I remember that. That's right.
right.
So a total of 11 miles from
But
the
he
camp
wasn't
to
he
him
wasn't found until 2 years later.
until
Right.
August of 2016.
Right. And so basically this group goes up there and they spot a skull under a tree. And they find his partially buried remains 11 miles from where he was supposed to be initially.
Mm-hmm. Not far
Partially
from a
buried.
farm.
Yeah, not far from a farm. Partially buried is what intrigued me.
Yeah, right. You're right.
What intrigued me is that they never found his feet.
Yeah, they never did find his feet, but you know, critters could have taken that,
Yeah.
you know.
I guess it would be interesting to see how the feet were removed.
That is true.
You know, is there like animal bites? Is it like a severed thing? Is there saw marks? Like what's happening there?
Right.
Especially since his boots were found separate without his shit. It's weird that his feet are missing. You know, it's not
Mhm.
like his boots were found and his hands were missing, or like, you know, it is kind of like a weird, what's happening there? What's going on? What are you saying?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Then so we're gonna cut to Sonora, California, the foothills of the Sierra. Donnell Vista. Oh, it was in the Donnell Vista. That's the area. I'm sorry. Where a few people have gone missing. Breck Phelps goes missing in this particular moment. and others had gone missing there as well, such as Patty Sue Tolhurst and Nita Mayo.
Mhm.
These people basically left everything in their cars except for their cameras. So they went to go take pictures, sightsee or something, you know, and they went missing. So these three people went missing in the same spot over a period of 11 years. No remains were ever found. And even though human remains were later found during the searches and everything, those were never identified. So you guys have anything to say about Sonora, California?
Not a lot. So they even say, so there's there's an overlook, which is a very dangerous spot. It looked like a very dangerous spot, but still, even then, they could probably have a helicopter go out and look and see if there's like remains hanging off the sides of the area. So you would think that that would be possible. So the fact that they just went poof, gone again in that area, and they made it known in the documentary that it wasn't far. It's not far from Yosemite. I don't say it correctly. Yosemite. That's it.
Right.
Which has the largest cluster of missing people in every sense of the world.
Right.
So
But
that,
Yosemite National Park is fucking humongous.
right.
I mean, it's fucking humongous.
But these three missing people were not far from the actual spot in Yosemite that they say people missing, and Yosemite has the largest population of missing people ever going missing of all the national parks.
So this specific thing is what Cindy said. It shook her. It shook me too. All right. So Yosemite has the biggest cluster, like Cindy said. And in this specific area called the Sierra Camp, which is kind of like a secret camp that, you know, hunters kept on the hush hush because they didn't want it getting ruined by researchers and whatnot, right? So weird stuff was happening in this area. And I'm talking like strange sounds like animals or like a tuning fork or other similar sounds, right? Like one guy said it sounded like a car slam door, you know? So they had been going there with their buddies since the 70s, and they had like a lean-to that they had built for their hunting purposes, and they would hear these, you know, these things, and it was almost like they were being watched. No image was ever captured, but they did record the sounds. They also saw lights in the sky and through the forest, like a beam of light. Like one guy describes it as like a lightsaber moving across the forest floor. So
and this is where, this is where the documentary starts to take a turn to the more paranormal sense, and looking at are these missing people because there is something nefarious in the sense of other people killing them or snatching them up, or could it be something truly unexplainable?
Right. So there was a fire. This was explained at the end of the documentary. There was a fire in that area, and the whole surrounding area, except for that one patch of woods, burned. Those trees were essentially unharmed.
That whole campsite was not damaged during the fires of 2018.
Yeah. So that's food for thought. So that leads me to the predator case in Lima, Ohio. Dana, were you saying something?
No, I was just thinking like about that fire situation, like how the fuck, like, and they don't, you know, that's the thing that's frustrating is they don't really offer up a lot of explanation as to like how this is possible, you know. And I don't know if they do that for like the spooky factor or like the paranormal factor or whatever, but like those were huge fires in 2018. Like that was a massive forest fire. So like to have this one little section not burn, like what do you mean? What kind of like witchy shit you got going on there that like protection spell did you put around on the ground that like didn't make that burn, you know?
Well,
Yeah.
if those recordings were real recordings, because they do play it for us.
They were spooky, yeah.
They were creepy. I did not sleep well. No,
Well,
I
here's what
was
I
running through
kept
the
thinking.
dark hallway to the bedroom that last night.
Here's what I think. Like for people who were very, very scared, they were sure mocking the shit out of that sound. Like they were copying it sound for sound.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
I
that's
was like,
like,
bitch.
yeah. That's some dude shit for you, because women wouldn't be doing that shit in the woods. You know what I
Hell
mean?
no.
Like I would be like, shut the fuck up, what the fuck are you doing? We don't tempt the
I would
fucking
be like,
devil,
shut up,
bitch.
shut the fuck up.
Mhm. Mhm.
We don't toy with the devil, motherfucker. We respect that shit.
They were like, it was like, oh, and they were like, oh, and then the thing was fucking responding.
Yeah, that shit was freaky as hell.
I was
Don't
like,
care for that.
no, no,
Even
thank
I
you.
was silent during the playing of the recording. Nope. No.
Yeah. I was like,
No.
shush, shush, shush.
You don't want to attract them closer. All that
Hell no.
keeping you safe is one little tree stump.
For real, right? Their lean-to was literally trees leaning against something. Come on now.
Right. Yeah.
So this leads me to the predator case in Lima, Ohio.
Right.
Dr. Bruce Maccabee and his wife Jan, and the 15-acre woods behind their house. Right. So Jan is a hunting aficionado, and she's in a little blind, you know, the little deer
Tree blind,
stand
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And she's high up, so she can hear the band students practicing at the high school across the way, you know, from at a distance of at least a mile, right? But she's high up enough where she can hear the practicing fields, and this is rural area, so she can hear that, right? So then all of a sudden she hears no sounds, and she said she saw like a large piece of saran wrap moving through the trees like a large ape, like
Yeah.
swinging from branch to branch with its arms. And then just like that, it disappeared and the sounds returned, the forest sounds and the band sound. And she kind of like, you know, beat feet out of there and went home. But at the same time, so she goes home and her husband receives an email from the high school or something saying that the high school students that were on the field at this time doing the band practice saw lights in the sky. And suddenly Jan remembers, and she tells her husband, oh, by the way, I saw this, you know, this dimensional thing that looked like I don't know if you saw the predator,
I
but
saw the predator, so I know exactly why they
yeah, so it
call
looked
it.
like a prism, like some invisible, not invisible object, where like the line of vision is distorted. So it looked kind of like a blob of see-through material or something swinging
Right.
through the
Yeah.
Mhm.
and that was at the same time that that the students saw lights in the sky, so which leads to the whole paranormal explanation of why maybe, you know,
People are
shit
missing.
right.
I would
Yeah.
say that when all of the sound goes away, I've watched enough movies to know that when all of the sound goes away, you in danger, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, nah, bro.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
That usually happens during a hurricane, like when
Right.
I've been in Puerto
In the
Rico during
eye.
a hurricane. I've been in Puerto Rico during a hurricane, and Puerto Rico is a loud ass place, not just like from the people but from nature. A lot of crickets, a lot of birds. You hear constant like animal sounds. And during a hurricane, right before the storm is coming, silence.
Yeah.
Or even in
Dead.
the eye, when the eye is coming over, it's silent.
There
Yeah,
was
And
this
then it
dead
comes
silent.
in. I do want to say one thing. So I live not even a mile away from the old high school. And I remember hearing them practicing from my house, like not even a mile away. I could hear the band playing very clearly and practicing.
okay.
So that's possible.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I would think probably even further than a mile, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
in a rural area where there's not a lot of traffic and whatever, like I would say it probably stand to reason you can hear it pretty really far, you
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
especially more elevated you are, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what was interesting to me about that is that like this particular part of the case is that she seemed like it deleted her memory until it was jogged later. Like
Yeah.
she didn't remember taking a picture. She didn't remember that it even had happened until she read the email, or you know, her husband read the email. And it seemed like what do you mean? Like you would think if you saw some spooky ass shit like that, and the way she's describing it, like sounds like a Spider-Man villain. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like the way it's like morphing and shaping, and then the way the kids describe what they saw, that it was like it didn't have edges or shapes, and it was like constantly changing and moving. You know, it made it seem like they had seen the same thing. Although she didn't mention like a bright light or anything. So
No,
like,
no, no, no. If you ever watch the Predator movie, if you ever get the opportunity to watch it, I promise you what they showed as the description is exactly like the Predator movie. Like how the Predator is when he's in like incognito form.
so do you think that this is not like a valid thing?
Oh, you know what? If there was something strange and there was lights above the high school in front of all those people, that's something verifiable by just talking to more than just one person.
Mm.
And you know, based on the documentary, they only talked to the one student um that had, and I believe he was the same one that had sent the email to his grandparents, because it wasn't the grandchild of
What
the
of the woman who was in the blind?
yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know why I thought like a mass email went out.
No, I thought it was an email from their grandchild or kid that
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, it
Okay.
was the grandchild. But
Mhm.
there was like 40 people at the band practice. It was like a
Right.
And that's
band.
why I said it's like verifiable,
Right.
Yeah.
because you can ask other people about it.
it would have been interesting for the documentary had they talked to a couple more students, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was they described it as an orange light, right?
Mhm.
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 An
Like in the
orange
way
fire.
they were like saying that it like hovered just above the tree line, that it would have been too
Too
low
low.
if it was like an aircraft of some sort.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of.
I don't know. That shit's
Weird.
weird.
So what did you gather from this whole documentary? What is your deal? Like, what do you think the point of this documentary was?
Alien abductions, I think.
I
Because they
think
don't say it though. Like
No,
they dance around it the whole time. You're like, say the thing though. Say the thing though.
but see, that's what makes it fun, I think, for me, because it's almost like write your own adventure. Like where you come up with the theory and you run with that shit, you know?
but the whole documentary itself from the beginning did not give you that whole this is an extraterrestrial thing until the very, very end. I mean,
Right.
the whole thing was like, this person's missing, these are the circumstances.
Right.
Right.
They didn't give you any kind of leads or ideas until the very end, where they like, by the way, this also happens.
But
Right.
but let's tie it all together. In the beginning, Tom Messick's friend said that he heard some weird out of nature sounds and
Mhm.
almost like a trap door. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for
So-
me, that also could be somebody has like a hatch somewhere there where they like snatch people up, suck them downstairs into like this
Lair.
lair, or like a wartime, secure place, bunker.
Jesus Christ, could you imagine if like the Native Americans laid traps out there for the white men and they're fucking working?
Because I kept thinking about the case that I did over the pandemic of the people that went missing in the triangle in Vermont. I can't think of the name of it.
Mhm.
The
Yes.
Barrington or whatever triangle.
Bennington. Is it
Yeah,
Bennington?
the Bennington triangle or whatever. And then I kept thinking about that girl that I don't know if it was you or me that did the case where she just fucking disappeared one morning. Like, so like this shit
With
is
the cousin.
yeah, with her cousin's boyfriend or something. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like,
That's the case I was thinking of.
yeah, it's so it's like this shit is happening like everywhere in the country, right? Like it is
Mhm.
happening. So
Right.
like what the fuck is going on?
Mhm.
You know?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
know. What are your theories? What do you guys think? Tell us.
I'd love to know. Do you
Yeah,
think
I
there's
mean,
rock people?
huh?
Do you think there's rock people that are eating? It's near rock quarries, so like
It's just so odd that there's like this list of criteria of all of the things and they all have it. They all have some sort of medical ailment. They all go, like how often are people really getting separated from their groups in giant, like how often is that? When I'm like camping with my friends, like maybe I'll go to the bathroom by myself,
right.
but like I'm not gonna fucking trudge off to a cache in the fucking woods to go get like, like that's crazy talk to me. Like that's wild.
Was I saying that word wrong the entire time?
No, it's cash.
Cache. I'm a little fancier than you, so like
All right, Tina.
And let's just call it a stash.
yeah, this little stash in the woods. Like to me, like
The fact that he had multiple stashes like that was
right.
like, dude, you're out there a lot.
I actually read something else about him, and it was the previous year they had gone camping to the same woods, and he just went to their old campsite where they had stored some things
Okay.
like sleeping bags and things like that they were
So
gonna need.
strange.
Yeah, but I mean these are people that were coming back a lot, and they were trying to avoid that very situation that happened.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. It makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I get it. Yeah.
That's it for us. That's it. This all I got for you. That's
Yeah.
all the notes. Maybe it was rock people. Maybe it was underground aliens. I don't know.
Underground aliens. It's
Yeah, living in
underground
the rocks.
humans just being weird, and then the aliens are above, just sucking them in.
Yeah.
Think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Pulling people
Anything's
right out of their
possible.
boots. Maybe he was just standing there on the edge of the water with his boots, and then they just like, and then his boots just got left there like that. And that's why they were like
Dude,
perfectly
possible.
side by side.
Possible.
And what they just came back and brought his corpse and sat it in the.
No, they were like, we're done experimenting. Bloop. Drop them
Yeah.
right
That's
out
why he
the
was
sky.
11 miles away. They just like dropped him somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Food for
I don't know.
thought.
I don't know. I think it scares the shit out of me that people just are like going missing without a trace, like with all of
And
their
we
shit.
may never know. We may never get answers because that forest fire, that Yosemite's forest fire, probably took a few bodies with it.
I would think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would think.
Absolutely. However, Lake Mead is drying up, and people are finding bodies all over the place in there. Did you
Really?
hear about that? They found a drum with a body in it. Somebody shot inside the drum. So wait for it. So far, they found 3 bodies. One of them is definitely foul play.
Wow.
Yeah.
Clothes from the 1970s and 80s, they say.
I hope they solve all these goddamn cases, man.
Well, as we keep losing water, yeah, we'll find out.
Ugh, I don't want it like that.
If you must find a perk, I suppose.
Yeah,
Just saying.
but not like that. Anywho, so that's it for us. We will see you next week.
No, we
No,
won't.
next we'll see.
we'll
when
do
we
We'll
this
see
again.
you. We'll see you when we see you. Don't
Yes.
yeah. We
We're
only
gonna
got
get
more.
we got 2 more to go.
Two more to
Okay, I
go.
like
And
the series.
if you have something you want us to watch,
Yeah.
let us know, because we have gone through a gamut of things and we just can't really nail anything down. So like if there's like something specific that's not like 1,000 episodes, let us know and we'll try to cover one
movie.
episode ideally. Yeah.
A movie.
I like
A
these
movie.
Missing 411s.
Yeah.
I like these.
You like
This was
this?
this
Yeah.
one was a good one.
Yeah, I like this stuff.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for dining with us. See you next month.